One more thing. Here we go. Now you should be able to hear me good. How about that? All right. So you want some cool esoteric movie tips. Sorry that it took so long for this all to get rolling here. But Dragnet from 1987, starring Dan Aykroyd and Tom Hanks, Christopher Plummer, Dabney Coleman. It's a remake of the old television series Dragnet, and this movie is just like unbelievably full of information relative to things that are current to today. So, just thought I'd share that with you. And there's others that I would recommend, but there's that one in particular, guys. It's a little bit like I was telling folks that if you really want to learn some clues about the ecosystem of like fake names and aliases and how they cross over from Hollywood production into reality, it helps to study what goes on behind the production of Hell Comes to Frogtown. If you stop passively looking at these things as entertainment and begin putting on an investigator's hat, like just pretend, for example, like you're playing a video game and the whole point of this is to place you in a simulation where you're supposed to catch something that looks a little bit suspect. And they ask you to look at the making of this film. And you notice that the director is a co-director, that there's two film directors, which is rare, that that there's two that are credited. I mean, there's like the Wachowski brothers who did The Matrix. That's example of like an actual partnership, but that's rare. Usually it's a director. Sure, there's assistants and things like that and whatever, but no. So there's one director that's credited named like Douglas Jackson, I think, or something like that. And then the other one is R.J. Kaiser. And then the whole movie was filmed at Kaiser Steel facility, which at the time had been renamed California Steel. And so the whole movie, it has lots of scenes. Actually, the vast majority of it's filmed at Kaiser Steel, and involves plot lines involving underground uranium mining and human trafficking. And so once you understand that there's a crossover to reality, I mean, even though the plot's about mutant frogs and crap like that, yeah, I get it. The point is for you to walk away from it thinking that you only saw science fiction. And you did. It doesn't mean there's mutant frogs down there, guys. That's not what I'm telling you. I don't believe that. What I'm telling you is that it's a metaphor. The frogs represent something else, right? You know, when you're looking at that movie, they are just simply whoever is in charge of the mines. They're the ones that, have dominance over it. So you can look at the frogs in that movie just simply as the powerful bloodline families that control everything that are underground. And then what is being done underground, they'll tell you straight up. The guy in the movie says, like, there's tons of uranium down here. It's like there's just one last pocket and we found it. And he's like, well, no, there is not. You guys didn't find any uranium down there. It's Roddy Piper, of all people, saying this. And then once you understand, guys, that the fact that there's uranium in the plot line, and they made the movie starring Roddy Piper, former wrestler, star of They Live, directed by John Carpenter, you'll understand that all of this has a greater meaning to it. A uranium is packaged in rods oftentimes. So that's called a uranium rod. It's a very frequently used term within the nuclear industry. I mean, you don't even have to be a person close to nuclear to know what a uranium rod is or have heard of one before. And so when you think about the whole thing involving underground uranium relative to, that is filmed in Southern California, this piqued my interest because it wasn't just filmed anywhere. It was filmed literally like right around the corner from where my father and his family all grew up. And then, there's a lot of other things that are going on in that general area, Rancho Cucamonga, that whole Hellman, Archibald connection to that neighborhood area. And then the whole lore behind the Kaiser. And I don't want to get deep into that topic tonight, guys, because I want to get into happier themes. But we do have to talk about some things. These days are ours. Those happy days are yours and mine. Happy days. I was trying to get that one down today. I was trying to think if I could do that, like for a song or something like that, the theme song to Happy Days. These days are mine. These days are ours. That's right. These days are ours. These days are ours. Those happy days. See, I need at least one other vocalist to do that one, right? Those happy days. These days are ours. Those happy days are yours and mine. Happy days. Ah, that was better. Cleared my pineal gland a little bit. The baritone does it. Helps. All right. Well, the reason why I wanted to mention that was because Hollywood is it really has been a thing that I think is so misunderstood at this point, and I've even has been so close to it. I think that to assume that everything to do with what went on in Hollywood had evil intention any more than to believe it had, that it started off all glowing, I think would be silly. What I appreciate about Hollywood over time, as critical as I am of all the dark elements of it, is that Hollywood as a culture seems to truly understand something that the rest of us don't. Overall, some of us do, I think, and are getting it finally. But what do you do with it once you understand what we exist in as a plasma field? I mean to say, Hollywood is what Hollywood is because the people within it operate on the notion that we all exist in a plasma field and that the truth is what you make it. That they are so heavily vested in the entertainment industry, many of them for decades, that they've simply gotten adjusted to the idea that when they place something out into the collective consciousness, people just go like, yeah, okay, I believe that. And they can make it feel so real to you because these movies are directed by some of the finest, filmmakers. And these people really know how to tug at your heartstrings. I mean, it's very effective. For me, it has been, still is actually. I can't tell you that I can watch all these movies without being affected by them. And I don't think they're all bad. I think quite a few did actually have something that's both defense related and benevolent in mind. And I think it's related to everything I've been trying to discuss lately to get people to understand. Part of what's going to make America function again is getting control over our information in a way that America actually understands its flow completely. Right now, America, both within our government and many circles, in much, not all, but quite a bit of our internal workings within America, simply has no clue how information flows. If you don't know how information flows and don't even have the most basic clue about it, it's extremely easy to hoodwink you. It's extremely easy to fool you into thinking that you're receiving information just like anybody else in the planet or anybody else inside this country. Hell, anybody else inside your own neighborhood, let alone the person next to you. There's ways to place people in what are called restricted IP environments. IP stands for Internet Protocol. If you're unfamiliar with what that term means, an Internet Protocol address is simply a unique number that's, point, point, whatever, the numbers, right? So one example, I'm going to give you a generic one, might be 100.11.120.30. That would be an IP address that you could be assigned, for example. That's the equivalent of just like sending mail to your house. And then you just have to look at it. It's just like an electronic address that's specific to your house. So if people don't get that and they don't understand how others understand it, it's extremely easy to manipulate your information environment, both to you directly and about you behind the scenes. So I kind of became hip that there was something called TULIP. TULIP stands for Tool Lie IP. It's a cipher. It's a 3-ring cipher. They do these all the time when they're making these things up. TULIP It simply is a way to communicate an address of the location of where some of these shenanigans are planned and mastered at. So it's Tulip, the street, lane to be specific. And then Tool would be one of the founders of this Tools. He loves the band Tool, and it is his tool, like it's literally a something that he uses. So TUL, tool. LI, lie, deceive, make one thing look like another thing. IP, tool, lie, IP, internet protocol. So you have one assigned to you. This tool makes it look as if whatever is passing on your address is not truly what is passing on your address. Hence, tool, lie, IP. If you don't know how information flows and you don't even know what I just talked about, like an IP address is, you're the easiest person in the world to fool. And I'm not being critical of you. I'm explaining to you that nearly anybody, it's a little bit like not knowing what your home address is, and then people can just like ship bricks of cocaine there and receive them, hoping that you'll be the patsy that eventually takes the blame for it when they just kind of pass by waiting for you not to be home. Then they grab their brick. It's kind of like that. But this is done electronically. It's done with information flow, and it's a way to make one person's activities look like another's. And I know what you're saying, like, what's really the value in that nowadays? Well, if you want to make one class of the population look, quote, deplorable, and another class of the population who truly is, quote, deplorable, look like they're sweet and innocent while they do a lot of, quote, deplorable things, this is the masterful way to do it. They just have to get close enough to you. It swaps the information out, the IP address out. It's a really clever way they do this. It's done with cell phones, like smartphone software emulated, like they're like femtocells. That's a bad way of describing it though, but they hive together like a cloud of coverage. So 3 people who have the same software platform on their smartphones can create a cloud around you of signal that your phone, because it's now being over amplified by these 3 people's phones, your phone hops onto their enterprise network. Now you're in this ring of information where everything you do must go through them, and they can put things onto your address. So what the ring effectively does is it's like a laundering of their IP information. It launders everything that they're doing relative to electronic communication. So if this person's a money launderer, doing things with cryptocurrency, if they're buying things like child pornography, drugs, illegal, substances or weapons or explosives, things of that nature, they can do it on a whole different person's IP address. So one example, when they're just trying to do something an easy way, is they would just like pull up to like an elderly folks home, hoping that the people inside are either too distracted to pay attention or too old to figure it out. That would be one way that they would do this, and like that I would think, right? They would absolutely like go for that, the easy targets. But you understand, folks, like a lot of you have approached me about things like this. Like, I really feel like this person is doing something close to me with their phone, and I don't think it's my imagination. And I'm like, look, I'm not there to know, but I can tell you that there's ways that people can basically hack into your device by pushing. They just got to get close enough to you to do it. And it has to be a strong enough amount of coverage. It shoves your phone. It like sends a jamming signal to where you're pushed off of your cell tower, and then your phone looks at their phone and thinks their phone is the cell tower that you should be on, because their cell phone is set up to be a software emulated like Stingray of sorts. There's lots of different brands, guys, so I don't like to blame Harris Stingray every time. I've actually researched one called Cobham. That's another brand that makes it, that works without having to have any permission from the cell phone carriers, just so you know. And you don't have to have any connected cables to the cell phone tower to make this one work, which makes it even spookier. And a lot of people seem to have this tool, especially in the Nevada, Las Vegas area down in Southern California. It's very prevalent in Portland metropolitan area. the predators and the child traffickers are very, very bold and aggressive about getting away with it, specifically in the Portland area, which is why I'm so critical of the Antifa, the Rose City Antifa operation out there, because they are always very, very cozy with these child molesters. It is just a fact, you guys. I mean, it's there's a number of examples of these people getting bailed out to the tune of 20 some plus $1,000 after stabbing black men at a Black Lives Matter protest, and some of them were pedophiles. One in particular is a guy that got pulled over by the Portland police, and they found a trunk full of children's clothes, lubricant, and child pornography on his drive. This is the man who is white, I'll remind you, who stabbed a black man while saying to everybody he's Antifa and marching for Black Lives Matter. And then people that have Democrat connections close to Antifa bailed him out. That's what this whole thing's about, guys. It's about finding ways to create social justice movements that bail out child molesters who are in a mafia. This mafia is placing people in high-level security positions where they're nearly untouchable and can provide accesses to other pedophiles who become nearly untouchable. If you understand what this amounts to, folks, if you just have a few people who are pedophiles that can create a network of pedophiles that have access to information that other people don't at a rate of speed that gives them a time advantage to rug sweep everybody else in the population, you have just handed that class of people more power than God. And I have identified one of these exploits, and I have tried to discuss it with the Bureau. Don't want to hear it. Okay, fine, whatever, guys. Just like Antifa is just an idea. It just pisses me off. I don't let it bother me that much, folks, because I've kind of seen what the game is. And I don't want it to piss you off either. But I want that outrage about how ridiculous what they're trying to pass off on us is. These aren't people that care about black people. I want you to know that. Whether you're in that movement genuinely because you believe in it or not, I'm helping you understand, folks, that Antifa's attachment to it is absolutely toxic. And they don't care about you. So whatever your part in this is, if you feel strongly about it or you just go along with it, I don't care which one it is. I'm telling you that you need to find a new way to do it, because when you're close to the people that are in charge of these things right now, they are hiding the track record of multiple serial human traffickers, child traffickers, and just straight up violent criminals. Trying to then create an environment where you're advocating for cop versus whatever criminal. And let me explain something to you guys. The cops involved in these setups are every bit as criminal as the people that are the criminals. These are partnerships where the law enforcement gets caught, the person that's in the streets gets caught, and they go, hey, how do we get people on both of our sides to not ostracize us from our communities, but actually reward us instead of saying, get out of here, you trafficker, or get out of here, you dirty cop? Well, they've learned to blanks. Blam, blam. Oh, on camera and everything. Take them down to the hospital. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No. You got duped by two sets of criminals, not one. And they're all colors. And you know what they tend to have in common? They're willing to sell kids, or they'll look the other way while it's happening. Cops and citizens alike. Figure it out, folks. I'm not your enemy on this one. I'm not a person that's just taking a position because I think it's cool. I figured out how they do the wireless hacks, guys. They literally use the protests to create miniature cloud computing things that are just mobile and go around. That's all they're doing, guys. It's that hack I just told you about. 10 protesters stack up. It creates a large cloud called an enterprise server, wireless enterprise server. Then everybody who enters it can pass files and do money transactions, money laundering transactions, all that crap that they're putting on there, their Cash App and their, I mean, it's all on Twitter, guys. You can see all the activities. It's all happening inside those environments. And the reason why they're so aggressive to people from the outside isn't like when you see Marquez down in those squares going, "Get out of here. You're not supporting us. What are you doing in here? What are you doing in here? Why are you here? Why are you here? Why are you here?" It's like, who the fuck are you? You don't have a badge. You're not from the county or some shit. Why are you asking me where I'm at? Do you have press credentials? No, do you? Do you belong here, you freaking Grinch that stole Christmas? I've seen this guy like harassing women. You know what's bizarre, dude? Where the hell were you guys when that was happening? That last clip I saw. Where were the men in that? Where the fuck were you? This guy was shorter than her, for Christ's sake. She could have punched him in the face. She had more civility, so congratulations. And I'm not saying that that's what you should do, but I'm saying like he's just sitting there like getting in her personal space, and then these people are always acting like there's like that's the kind of thing that they're defending people against. Hey, you bully, you thug. You're being violent towards us. It's like, no, dude, you're all violent. You guys are look, just figure this out, guys. Don't put yourselves next to a terrorist organization that's going to get swept off the freaking street. And here's the thing, guys. Now what they're doing is they're just ramping it up with all of this, like the masks and crap like that, and pretending to threaten Ted Wheeler. I love how this all transitioned, guys. Now, see, nothing changed after their guy got in. It was all about the racist policies of Trump. Well, now they're like, now we're really going to burn it down. You know why they said that after Biden got into office? Because Biden's going to let them. Just like Pelosi let them paint on her garage door. Do you guys honestly believe they genuinely vandalized Nancy Pelosi's house? She had brick, like historic brick walls all around that one white garage. If Antifa are such badasses, why the fuck did they only paint on the white garage? Ooh. Because it was staged. The Dems are staging this. Okay? There's good evidence of this. So, guys, you don't have to be a Republican or anything like that, but just start to be a little bit nicer to people that have contrarian perspectives on these things. And don't assume that a person that, like the other guy, is a freaking white supremacist or a racist. That's all, please. For me, if you don't mind, anybody out there who's still thinking that. Because I know a lot of these people. They're pretty cool. And they're not like that. Okay? That's all. And some of the people that are standing next to you, I've noticed, are child molesters. Some of the people standing next to you stab black people. Some of the people standing next to you are tearing apart the very neighborhoods that they allege to be protecting. And you know what happens after Antifa goes through a black neighborhood? Think about this. Social justice, my ass. You know what happens? Look at the people in the aftermath. I've seen their reports. They're angry. They're like, do you understand what you just did? The people who live here are in low-income housing. They can't go down the street to go get something to eat. The stores are right here. They have to walk to get their food and haul bags back. And you assholes made it to where they can't get anything within 10 blocks of here. Thanks for helping, guys. Are they really helping? Do you think they really care? Is their agenda based in anything sincere? Even if you think it's just genuinely anti-American, which it absolutely is, but it's way deeper than that. It is the actions in tandem with a foreign government that are terrorist in nature. And the insiders that we have within United States that are Operation Paperclip Nazis are letting them do it. I have submitted the most compelling information you could possibly imagine to this FBI. And do you know something? They don't got a goddamn bit of time to look at it. But they will look at all kinds of bizarrely ridiculous, nowhere nonsense stories and send a dozen agents to go look at it. That's the reality they sell you guys. They're managing the crime. Just remember that. The FBI won't do anything with my case because it reveals their partnership with cartels, gangs, Hollywood to run and manage the very drugs, all of these economies involving human trafficking, sex trafficking, and drug trafficking are done with their informants who get protection. And then all they got to do is turn in the competition who winds up getting absorbed into the business of the other informants, just like corporations are doing to all the little businesses during COVID. They're not solving crime. Bullshit they are. They are absorbing the criminals into a large organization that they manage. Fact. You have proven it to me for the last however many years, FBI. I wasn't even going to go off on you tonight, but that's what I think he is. Some of you are cool out there, I'm sure. I know you didn't know about this. I'm just saying, man, the second you get a good opportunity to partner with a decent person in military intelligence, please do. Because you understand what they've done is they've hoodwinked everybody into the information pathways. That's the problem. Okay? So you don't know where you're getting your information from. You don't really know. And you're getting garbage information that is so manufactured, and it's been that way for a very long time. They are never busting real drug traffickers, guys. They are it. They point the finger at a border when they do everything underground. I've been near nearly every underground facility it seems to be going on at. Why did I wind up at Hanford, then Rocky Flats Plutonium Factory, then the Yucca Mountain Repository Project nearby where this was all when I was a kid, moving place to place to place to place, all nuclear, all places that had downwinder incidences, some release of nuclear chemicals in their history, sometimes right around the same time the moving happened. Interesting. Some were scandals. Actually, they were all scandals. Some I didn't even know about until I read recently, and I'm like, holy shit, this was all going on while we were moving from place to place? Who is the Pied Piper of nuclear waste in America? Is that how they get their power? So I was going to talk about the Bloodline Wars tonight a little bit. But here's why I want to first talk, even though I'm 30 minutes in. I want to talk about the Trinity of Human Energy again, because what Hollywood does is they tap into this concept with excellence. And so what we need to do in general, all of us, is learn to do the same. And you don't have to be somebody who believes in esoteric societies or the cults or occult societies to do this like they do. You simply have to understand the scientific process that involves bioenergetics. And then once you get in, first start with the field of energetics, and you can start by looking into my material. It's pretty decent, I think. And I have 11 parts in a series called Energetics and Archaeometry. This walks you through the whole process of why Hollywood is so powerful. It does. It helps you understand human energy concepts, how we exist in a universal plasma field, and a lot of that passes through us as a conduit. While it passes through us as individual conduits, we're programming matter as it exits from us, a little bit like we're all parts of an inkjet printer. And as it's passing, across the paper, all of us as a collective consciousness are contributing to that color palette that makes it into the reality that we exist in, that's on the sheet of paper, but obviously it's a 3D perception. If you can kind of like, that's not the best metaphor, but yeah. And so keep in mind that you're aware that you have a skeletal structure. You know that you have bones inside you. You know, right here is your skin. You got a face. So what you have there, when I say a trinity of human energy, the first energetic part is the one that's vibrated into resonance from everything else, which is your skeletal structure. It's vibrated down into resonance. But I would also argue that your skeletal structure is the meeting between earth resonance, where you're effectively like an imprint, or rather a replication of all the other things that the earth has produced. And so it's forming your basic shape. The earth says, this is what humans look like. You came from another human. You are going to form into a human accordingly, with this skeletal structure as the base. And it begins to form that through earth resonance. And then what meets up with that is the metaphysical. It's the thoughts become things that vibrates this all into frequency. So really what forms into you, yeah, you get earth resonance when you're inside your mother's womb, forming your the embryo structure, because look, it's like a globe, is it not? But once that's formed, yes, now you begin receiving an imprint within that plasma field. That's the circular plasma field inside your mother's belly. Now everything your mother is witnessing and seeing is programming matter and basically going down into you. So she looks in the mirror every day and she sees, a person with two eyes, ears, cheeks, everything else like that, and then stares across at, a man and sees this similarly. And you get these people's traits in you. They're part of your DNA. It's programming matter. You know who your DNA family is. It's not the only thing, obviously, what was in there helped, obviously form it into what it becomes. But you see what I'm saying? It's this, again, like a trinity of energies that's existing within that collective consciousness, which your mother has, and then earth resonance forming into the embryo. Until then you're released, and then you begin doing the same, processing data back and forth, processing plasma. All right. So you got the skeleton, the face, there's two. Now your third is your biofield. Now we get into the concept of what I've been talking about here. Well, I'll just use a slide from my my energetic series because it has it on there, but this is all I'm talking about. I mean, this whole thing really is a good way to describe it overall. That's one of the reasons why I make these slides. They're just quick visual things to give you an idea, not only of the material that I'm covering when I do those presentations, but it's just a quick way to unpackage the idea overall. What is a biofield? How do you process that biofield? What is really going on within the external plasma relative to what your body's producing with electromagnetic signals and what it's processing back and forth between other humans at the extremely low frequency range? You're always, basically somewhere close to earth resonance. The earth clock's pretty close to 7 to 8 hertz. Schumann resonance being 7.83, closest to the earth is what they say. And so the brainwave, the human brainwave, most people idle at 10 hertz, but quite a few psychics and psychic adepts will be much closer to earth resonance. So what I'm suggesting to you is that when that happens, those people, all that means is when you have stronger, when you're more psychically adept or you have stronger abilities, it simply means that you broadcast, I think, more of this bioplasma and you do it further. It's a little bit like you have different antennas that you can have for a cell phone tower. Some have really narrow beams. They go a long ways. They travel really, really far, but they don't cover anything close up. And then you have some that cover everything really close to the tower with a really bulbous pattern, and they may only go out like a couple blocks. But if that's all you're trying to do is cover right there close to the tower for about 2 or 3 blocks, it's a perfect antenna. You may not want to travel 10 miles down the road with it. Maybe you already have towers down there that are doing just fine. The whole point of this tower was to cover everything close by. So again, you don't always want something that broadcasts everywhere. Sometimes it's better to have something that just broadcasts in a limited way, And human biofields aren't that much different in that regard, one could argue. And so I would suggest to you that when you're considering the concept of the biofield, to remember that you don't have to accept everything that's external. You understand? I mean, like others in Hollywood, what they've learned is to program everything here. Because what you begin to do is through this part of your mind, you begin to accept the biofield into your pineal gland. I want you to start looking deeper into this a little bit and think about what I'm talking about here. When I say Trinity of Human Energies, you have a skeleton because you've seen it x-rayed and you've seen people's bones, right? From a graveyard or whatever. You went to class and saw the skeleton. So it exists. You can't see it, but it's there. You see your face, it exists. Well, start to understand that you do have a biofield, whether you're seeing it or not. Some people, they see it. They can actually physically view what they call their aura. This is a little bit of a different concept, so I try not to cross the word aura with biofield anymore because I used to kind of make that mistake. So sorry to those who are a little bit more purists within this realm of research, because I don't mean to cross those terms, and I apologize. But yeah, it's consistent with what looks to be like an aura, okay? But instead of thinking about it like that, folks, just think about it more that it's a plasma field, that it's a lot like a crystal. I mean, think about it. It's just like a crystal where it depends on the angle. This looks clear, right? But I think we know that once you hit just the right light, this will start to like shine, nice luminescent glowing colors. Just depends on when you get it in the right spectrum of light. This one's got, I'm trying to think of this one. Actually, it depends on the light you see it in, but this one doesn't have a lot of color, but there's a few points where when you really look deep into it, yeah, like you can see that. Can you see that? It's almost like a flashlight. You see how it's kind of making like a little look. I'm gonna expand my screen here so you can see it better. Actually, that makes it harder to see. It's not like if you look very close in the center here, right about there, you'll see it shine. It's hard to see in this kind of light. Let me see if I can improve it. It's kind of dim, and it's way better when you can get the light in it. But all I'm telling you is this is a perfect metaphor for what I'm talking about with the biofield, the way that this little beam of like circular colored corona discharge type looking light, it's not that exactly, but it could be actually. I'm not sure what that emission would be called technically. But light and color do kind of spill out through the center when you really look straight into it. It's really interesting. And so within the biofield, what I'm suggesting to you is that what you need to start doing is recognizing that what the media is doing every day is they're getting you to define this exact, that color spectrum right there as it enters into your 3D perception. It's a little bit like, think about that as your pineal gland where that color glow is coming in there. And their goal is to feed as much of their information that tells this how to perceive everything around it, because it's all programmable. And if you were to surround yourself with people who have ideologies that are similar to you, and you simply agreed to reject those news cycles and say, I'm not believing this, you would have an enormous impact on the collective consciousness, depending on your blood groups. Those of you who start to synchronize your values together, you begin to change the grid exponentially, especially if you're in the right geographic location. And mystics know this. The reason why a lot of these societies will like get these great buildings on top of the hills, kind of close to the water, is because kinetic energy, water flow underneath the hill, being at the top of the hill, they get this huge energy momentum buildup that amplifies everything that they do when they hive their thoughts together. You put a whole bunch of them in the Hollywood Hills that all believe in the concept of a bioplasma field and that they themselves are programming it for the rest of us. And what do you think kind of world we wind up living in? We're all effectively, folks, in a way, when you really get down to it, we're all kind of looking into in and out of something very similar like this. And then there's some of us who say, hey, I want to roll in what that color spectrum looks like when it gets output. And they keep telling us, no, you don't get to have a say. You don't even get to vote for who you want for president. We tell you what to think. And they keep doing it over and over again. They're saying, no, we tell you what to think. So empower yourself now to understand that you don't have to get angry. You don't have to get upset with these people. It's an appropriate reaction, and I get pissed all the time. So I'm not telling you not to. But no, get over it quick, because the more you stay angry, the more they got you. I promise you, you're sending them energy. You are transmitting it to them. And they want you focused on them. They want you concentrated on them, because you're giving away that biofield. That biofield dissipates further away from you, and you know where it goes to? It draws right over to them. And then they take it from you and they re-radiate it. And then theirs becomes stronger. And you know how they get this to happen? It's as simple as getting you to focus on them. It is that easy. Because what we have forgotten and have hidden from us is that when you watch somebody on television and you're going like, wow, I really like this actress or actor, especially if they're attractive and they're charming and everything else like that, it's exponentially stronger. Because you might, especially if it's a really, really, like, hey, ladies, guys, whatever, there's going to be some actors and actresses you really like, wow, they're so good looking and they're an amazing actor. Like, you respect them on all these different levels, right? And that I'm explaining to you that within the biofield, that's literally all these layers as they get further and further away from your body. If you're attracted to somebody, some of the POR, the positive orgone radiation, as it starts moving away and it's no longer color spectrum. See, you're not visualizing it as color because it's a little bit like the way that this color goes in and out, right? On the crystal, the same way. That's how we're all doing it constantly. And so what I'm saying is that the more people that you either hate strongly or love strongly, you're sending energy to them of different spectrums, and it's emitted from your body, represented somewhat, if you were to look at it as a color chart. Like, you could see it this way in a way. Yeah. You're giving this away, because what this is a little bit, it's like everything's a universal plasma field, but you get to vote on how it all outputs. Your body, your brain gets to say, hey, all this reality I'm surrounded by, hey, maybe I want everything to be like Harry Potter and, Fantasia with Mickey Mouse. There's people out there that are like that. Well, look, their opinion's as valid as anybody else, I guess, even though I disagree with the world being that way. But hey, that's going to be their shared value system, and they're going to want to see that manifest. If they're better at it than you, they're going to be better at making the world a little bit more Harry Potter and a little bit more Mickey Mouse Fantasia. That's all. And if you want to see the world a little bit more grounded and you want to see the world a little bit more spiritual, then I would say understand what these people are doing as esoteric occultists and mystic societies and Hollywood and everything else, and learn to make it to work to your advantage for the people that you love and the people that you care about. Learn to make the biofield work to heal the people around you, to send loving energy to the people around you, because you actually can change everything exponentially by just simply transmuting negative energy. Once your conduit passes, it starts to, once negative energy, DOR spectrum radiation is what, if you really want to break it down to something, yes, DOR spectrum radiation as negative energy, that would be defined technically as deadly orgone radiation, but I don't like that as a term. I prefer dead. Sorry, not dead. I don't like it to be called dead because it is a life energy. So calling a life energy dead, I think, is just, to me, it's Reich's big mistake. I think if Reich had called it dark or dormant or something just different than deadly, everything would have been different. So I'm encouraging that we call it dark or dormant or something of that nature. And, whatever you want to call positive orgone, I don't really care. I mean, in that regard, because I don't think positive is a bad thing. I just don't think you should be trying to necessarily attach good and evil to the terms is all. because this is a psychoenergetic process. And if people think dead when it's a life affirming energy, then it becomes more of a death cycle energy by design, something that I really do think is problematic. All right. Now, what I would like you to do is to remember that everything that you're thinking about, everything that you're focused on, is broadcasting out of your body, just like you see here, that it's all matters. If somebody all day long makes you think and fear something, then they can get you to manifest it or contribute to manifesting it. If they can get 1,000,000 people simultaneously scared of the same event, all the words that are attached to the event are now more powerful, because everything that emits from you that's within this field is contributing to something larger. All of this is energy that when you think, for example, of a word like love or hate, all the people thinking of love send a little bit of this plasma to the word love within the collective biofield. This is why when Professor Emoto tells a bunch of school children, I want you to concentrate on the word gratitude and focus on this glass of water like in a prayer circle. And then he measures what the water looks like. It's Tokyo tap water. It's all mangled up inside. It's not even looking proper through a microscope when they first start testing. But as soon as those school kids start thinking gratitude and focusing on it, guess what happens? The structure of the water changes. And you know what that is? That's literally all of their bioplasma hiving into one common thought. And because they all understand the word as life affirming and positive, what the scientific process that occurs is when Professor Emoto reviews the water under that microscope, it changes from a deformed structure into a perfectly symmetrical snowflake-like structure. Symmetrical, like a crystal. I mean, not like, well, crystals are somewhat, but you know what I mean? You get the symmetry, you get the perfection in the way everything is shaped. Whereas before, when it was passing through dirty harmonics, going through different angles of pipes, chemicals inside it and everything else like that, it changed it as physical matter. You know, and then once they place it in a glass and they surround people who, again, water changes water. Water changes water. So stop thinking about this as some voodoo experiment and just break it down to what it truly is. All of those kids are transmitters of bioplasma, which is programmable platelets within their blood. On top of it, their bodies and brains are 60 to 70% water. The glass is water. So literally this process has like the ability to operate so quickly and so, nearly predictably, to where like I started to say, like, I can't just look at that and go, that's bogus or that's not a thing. I know it draws a lot of skepticism, but why? It's because they want you to be skeptical of it, because your skepticism is part of what prevents it from happening. Your skepticism and inability to believe in it makes it not happen. Why did Emoto say he asked the parents, is it okay to do this? This is why he says it in his article. He says to the parents, I would like permission for them to send their gratitude to the glass of water while you watch in this test. And they're like, okay, why? You see what I'm saying here? The parents are kind of like going, okay, why? All right, well, that's why. Okay. So the cynicism of the parents would not generate the same effect. So belief matters. Belief in someone matters, and belief in a concept, an idea, or a word, and the number of times it's thought about, the number of times that it is placed into the collective consciousness and repetition, and the more extreme the events are that are associated with the terms, the stronger those terms become through fear-based energy or, positive orgone. I guess you could say fear or love, but I would prefer positive orgone-based or DOR. POR versus DOR. I don't like qualifying one as love and one as hate, though. I really feel like that's a total misnomer. But few would argue that positive orgone radiation typically encourages loving behaviors. It encourages cooperation. It encourages, good feelings. You're going to feel warm. You're going to feel affectionate. You're not going to feel confrontational. Your initial perspective is going to be to want to synchronize and cooperate and balance whatever your needs are against that of others, not to dominate. DOR spectrum radiation, because of the way it's been defined, has become all the opposite of that: hateful, dominant, deadly. And if you simply redefine it as not deadly, but as either dormant or as dark, then it just simply becomes a cycle, counter cycle thing where, you're just dealing with the existence of the spheres, the hemisphering. What exists within the human body is two cycles of energy doing this that are in opposition, they're working in opposition, but they're not in competition. They're in opposition, but not in competition. And that between those two spheres, you form the Vesica Pisces, which is this whole human body. See, it vibrates into resonance through the spheres. And then the Vesica Pisces is this. When you think about it, guys, really what this is sphere here, sphere over here, and then in between is the Vesica Pisces. And then all that you input and output is a plasma-based process. So when you take in messages, when you take in everything that's energy external, it goes into your brain, it goes across your pineal gland, which is, guess what? It is piezoluminescent. That's your pineal gland. You see the way they make it glow in the illustration? It's because literally right here in the center where all this pathways of electromagnetic signals are coming in and out of, it bounces off of this, and this is called a piezoluminescent, piezoresponsive pineal gland. And your pineal gland literally is surrounded by everything that makes these glow. I was showing you like a little woo in the middle there. Woo, there it is. Oh yeah, there you get it. You can see the light pretty good there. See that? See how it kind of glows purple, doesn't it? That's what I'm talking about. All right. Inside your brain is this little pixie dust, just like this. It all surrounds that pineal gland. It's just like this, and it's all surrounding it, which means that whenever something goes into your brain that's an electromagnetic signal, when it's piezoluminescent, that means that it responds to electrical signals. It'll go psh, and then it'll form that colorful response. And then guess what happens? In the back of your brain, you're getting this same projection, just like in the back of this crystal. You're getting this projection, which is structuring your reality, which is compared against everybody else doing the exact same thing energetically. And you're all just like a cybernetic grid. We were all a cybernetic grid that are sharing this experience. And then when it externalizes as a Trinity of Human Energy, there it is, right? So that's why I try to explain to people why I'm so fascinated with the Kirlian photography, GDV, and like why I want to know more about biofields in general. When somebody says they have a gift or they're adept at something, yeah, I'm going to be curious about what makes that person work. I want to know more about their brainwave. I want to know more about their biofield. I want to know more about how they're contributing to this overall plasma field, because it's important, folks. And let me explain to you that's exactly why intelligence agencies and governments globally want the people that understand this. That's why you're valued when you know what this is. That's why you're valued, because some people would seek to tell you that this is all ridiculous and stupid and doesn't exist. And those are usually the ones that know it exists. So one of two things: they want you to stop knowing and forget it and just to like drop it, because they want to be the only ones who control this. Why do you think that is? They don't want you to have a say. Just like on the news, they want to make it to where you don't even get a chance to be on the news. And so biofields are the same ways, except what I'm explaining to you is once you understand what this really is, it's like you do have access to the media, but you have access to the bio-internet media. You have access to the collective consciousness because you'll learn how to make it work for you. You'll learn how to make these plasma emissions that come out of every living object flow and reinforce the terms that you want. Now, I don't abuse this myself, but I've learned what this does. And what I do is I create balance. If I see imbalance, I try to create more balance to the area, to the region. That's one of the things that I'm using to measure it, just so you know. That's called that's the BioWell GDV camera, and this is the Sputnik device. And you can use this to measure these types of subtle energy fields where the bioplasma kind of binds to and travels through. So it's kind of an interesting field of research that's, somewhat experimental, but not entirely. And so these are just some of the things that I did in my recent Energetics 11 article that if you haven't seen it, you may want to. I'm not advertising per se. It's just something that will help you understand the Trinity of Human Energy better. All right. So Hollywood gets it. Hollywood understands that everything we exist in is just a whole accumulation of this color spectrum all gathered up into one great big ball. And when it accumulates all together, it is the earth that we stand on and live and breathe in. It is. We just bring it all into formation together constantly. So the reason why the world seems to be changing in these really strange and bizarre ways is because the people that are in control of the media just know how to bend the plasma field better than the rest of us. This is why I'm constantly trying to reinforce this as a set of education to say, please understand it. This isn't, don't just come to this channel because you want to hear some cool things about, disclosure or whatever. These energy concepts really, I want to be the crux of why. I mean, it's up to you guys. If that brings you here, great. I'm glad. But at the end of it, I really, this is why I'm doing this every day. It's because I want people to understand this, because the ones that are manipulating you, it's sad to me, you guys. It's a little bit like, I don't know, you ever see somebody like, to me, I feel like intellectually, everybody got shortchanged on something they should have been taught. And these people sit there and go like, they're such idiots, they deserve it. And it's like, no, they're not. These are really intelligent people out here in our country. You're hiding this from them. You're making sure that you surround nothing but ridiculous goons that just go like, Gaia, Mother Earth, let me tell you something about the bio, fields and things like that. It's like, I'm going to tell you something about like, the pineal gland today and, how there's like color spectrum and, it's like, and so then there's a whole bunch of us out there that's like, are you sure you can't find a better way to explain this to us? Because I really feel like you're trying to make it look dumb. I really feel like you're trying to make it look silly to me. And as I got to understand it better, I just started to figure like, you know what? I'm just going to try to create as good of an educational series as I can to basically walk people through it. Literally, guys, like I needed to be stepped right through it to like, okay, at first I just didn't get it. And it's like, you need to have a little bit of, step-by-step learning of it. So I think quite a few people that join my chats know more than I do about it. So kudos to you. I'm not trying to lecture you or anything like that. It's just to help you understand maybe why some of my energetics material may seem a little bit, quote, simple. That's all. I try to make it that way because I want it to be something that nearly anybody within reason, because some of it is just too adult for a certain audience to understand. Like a youth audience wouldn't get most of it. But I don't want it to be inaccessible to somebody who has a relatively basic education. Like to understand my material, you shouldn't have to know, much beyond like, the basics, guys. I mean, you wouldn't even have to have graduated from high school or anything like that to understand my energetic series, I think, honestly. And I'm not trying to dumb it down excessively, and I don't even like that as a term. I mean, I really just want it to be building blocks that just take you step by step into something that I found extremely challenging to understand, because I would hear people all the time going, there's chakras and frequencies, and your lungs have a frequency. And I go, how do you know? Where did you measure it? What device did you measure it with? How did you get those frequency numbers on this chart you're showing me? Would you please explain this to me? Your lungs have a frequency. How? And then you like go, okay, well, your chakra up here, your frequency up here is 140 megahertz. I'm like, it is? Where did you get that number? Can you show me the chart? Can I see the spectrum analysis that shows that my brain clocks that many megahertz? I just want, Where did it come from, guys? Will you please show me? No one would do this. I still haven't found it really for the most part, except in the sources that I learned through, which is like groups like Helionosis, studying a little bit of James DeMayo's research. He expanded on Wilhelm Reich considerably since Wilhelm Reich died. These are the people that DeMayo in particular is really pioneering the modern orgone research. I would say the guy that developed the Helionosis life meter is also, because that's a meter that James DeMayo uses. So I have one of those meters myself. And it's what I was measuring like tree life patterns with and soil patterns with, because I was really curious what I would find in the desert in particular. So when I still had some pretty decent amount of funding going there, and I could get around still a little bit better there, I was taking my life meter to different points a few times a day and just measuring it and showing people the results that biofields exist everywhere. They exist with trees, they exist with people. Trees in particular, I think, are very interesting because they're different than other forms of a quote, plants or whatever, in that there's studies that would suggest, and I would love to see where this exact study is. I've only read and heard about it, but didn't see the white paper, I guess you could say. But that when a person, they have evidence to suggest that based on their energy readings of trees, that trees do experience things that are consistent with a fear signature, just like people get afraid of things, and there's a measurable signal to it. Trees experience that stress and fear when humans are near them. They're not comfortable around people overall when you measure their stress levels. They can do it similarly to they can people, I guess. So that, I thought that was super interesting. Again, I try not to say those things too much without having something to reference. So if somebody does know where that report is, I would love to see it, because I've never heard about it except for in like verbally said in documentaries that I consider to be more valid than others. So go to James DeMayo's website if you're looking for things involving Wilhelm Reich. He has a thing called Orgone Lab. So I would say the guy that really is doing it the most right now, and it's an Orgone Lab in Oregon, interestingly. I've never visited it and I've never talked to the guy. I just know that he's an expert, and so there's your thing. And James DeMayo on his website, by the way, folks, I'm not trying to help anybody sell anything, but he does sell like blankets that are good for building orgone accumulators, and like they're like 100% wool, and some are like wool blend that are Pendleton blankets. If you're trying to do things involving healing and with orgone energy, I don't care what anybody says. You can laugh at me if you want to. One of the most healing and effective things is, even for serious things, is an orgone blanket. And if you can't get a full-blown orgone blanket, then you can just get one that's made of 100% wool, or a majority wool blend if wool is too scratchy for you. And that's why I recommend the Pendleton blankets, because they're about 80% wool. They feel really good on your skin, and I'm telling you, you wrap one of those around your body, you'll feel like $1 million. There is something about the way that it does something with your plasma field and putting the plasma back into your body. It doesn't just go and dissipate away. It keeps pumping it back in and recirculating it. And so the more you can put one of these blankets around you and focus on positivity, literally try to get into a meditative state and allow your body to heal. I'm not joking. Guys, the power of this, I promise you, is exponential. It has done me more good individually, I can tell you, than I could possibly express to you. The blanket root method for me is unbelievable. And I've had a validation from others that encouraged people that were close to them to use the blankets, and they themselves have gotten excellent results from it too. So look, guys, people always think that the solution is going to be some huge like megawatt generator of something, and I'm sure something like that exists that will solve some problems, but no, it's in this case, there's not like some device that you plug into your laptop or plug into a wall that's electronic. It simply is a matter of using nature using the materials within nature and the, God placed here, or the creator placed here, to actually heal your human body. And there's elements of your human body that can heal other parts of your body. So as long as you understand that your body is a self-healing machine, you can do a lot of things to benefit yourself, even when you're having, aggressive negative energies directed towards you behaviorally or otherwise, that are attacking your spirit. Folks, I'm telling you, these blankets, they really do amazing things for all of it. Mind, body, and spirit. It's not a joke. I'm not trying to sell them to you. It's just that, do you want to feel better? Are you in the market for a blanket anyways? You may want to look into it, And I'm not trying to sell a specific brand. I just know the one that works for me. And that was the Pendleton blankets that are from Oregon, of all places. So, hey, but yeah, that's the thing. All right. So why does all this matter? Because I wanted to start off by giving you, some of what's going wrong in America, the Trinity of the Human Energy, more as both a science-based discussion, but also kind of a pep talk in a way, so that people can kind of understand what they have inside them and what they have when they're with others that are sharing similar ideas. That what I would encourage you to do is, if you just have one other person in your life that's synchronizing with you and you're thinking the same thing, recognize the power that you have together. Recognize that you can just simply meditate, focus on the same things in the same place at the same time, and change the energy grid exponentially. And guys, I'm telling you, if it means, wrap yourself in the blanket while you do it. Or these hats, wool hats help you. Wool as a material, as a hat, oh my God, dude, makes a huge difference. Wool beanies, wool hats, anything wool. If you can stand it on your head or on your body, it'll do you a lot of good. All right. The reason I'm telling you this is because the more we get the education that these folks have, and we learn to do something with it, the more you'll understand why these groups are always trying to kill each other off who know what it is. And this is why I want to transition into the conversation relative to the Bloodline families, the Godfather and CGI, because the Bloodline families basically know everything about this. They know how to change the biofield. They know how to do some pretty esoteric things with it that I don't even like to discuss, because they're a little bit science fiction, but they do exist and they are real. Trying to explain them, though, I have to get into long technical discussions. But I did want to discuss again in a more meaningful way than I normally do, the concept of trinities within deception. So just like you have this as a trinity of human energy, what they've learned to do is create characters that exist in a few different ways in Hollywood. Some of the people that you've gotten used to seeing in films, I just need you to know, they just don't look like they do in nature. They don't. I've known some of these people and met them before to know that there's one variation on them that exists and has a normal life. You'll never know this person does films. You'll never know they're in a television series. They'll report to a job like it's a normal job and go there every day because that's their cover. Then they proceed to do a whole grouping of creative projects that signal other things relative to projects they're working on, relative to occult work. It's difficult to explain everything that's involved, folks, but a lot of what we accept as entertainment, especially within television series, is really just serialized updates of information for a select class of people. Eyes to see, ears to hear. That percentage gets their information. The rest of us accept it as entertainment. Nothing that's going to surprise you folks on that one, I'm sure. Sorry, I had to crack my back. That felt better. All right. But what I'm telling you, though, is that they've learned how to bend this plasma field in masterful ways. And they're all kind of at war with each other. How else do I say it, guys? What this amounts to is there's a certain percentage of the population that when they're combined in their efforts, they affect the plasma field more than the other 90-some% or as much. That's kind of the way nature caked things in. Why? I don't know. Doesn't seem entirely fair. But within the biofield, yeah, those blood groups, they're kind of the fountain, the wellspring, because they're kind of source DNA. It's like it leads back to them because the original descendants, the people that all starts with, eventually the first person that began DNA dies. Then the next oldest one exists. Then they die. Then the next oldest one exists. You see how this works a little bit? You know that even within your own family, there's a person that passes along the purest form of this one set of genetics before it gets down to wherever you are as the great, 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 great grandkid, right? I'm just thinking about that as, I'm asking you to think about that as the source of all man and woman as we exist. Where does that all lead back to? Okay, if you believe in Adam and Eve, fine. Then when they died off, who became the next master genetics that's closest to the original Adam and Eve? You see where I'm going? That's what this is all about. The ones that know who they are, and they do have the data, they will partner with the others who know who they are if they are synchronized in their thoughts, ideas, and values. So if that 3% wants to rule the freaking world and make it to where the rest of us have to come to them for everything, if they can control the media, it's extremely easy for that small grouping of people to do it especially. I would argue that even if they didn't have the media, the fact that that small percentage of people, if they just simply focused on absorbing and acquiring the media, that's all they would have to do. Eventually, through their thought forms, somebody would eventually hand the ownership over, or through some bizarre miracle, they would wind up with it. As weird as that sounds, because everything is sort of like spell casting with vibratory frequency and getting something to generate by placing it out in repetition. This is especially effective with music, top 40 music, television series, movies. All right. Why do some of these songs why are they so horrible? But you hear them all day and night. You can't get them out of your head. And they're in your head for years. That's part of it. The reason why some of these songs ever even make it into the top 40 charts, in fact, the vast majority, in fact, if not all of them, are simply there because they're feeding into building a larger structure within the biofield for all of us to accept. So I would argue, folks, that really what's going on right now is the bloodline families are on the hunt. They are. They are on the hunt for every single person that has this, that's within that 3% of the population. They want them. And if you don't think like them, they're going to brute force MK you. And if that doesn't work, the next phase would be extermination, convincing you especially that you're dead, the death cycle exists, you don't exist. That would involve some pretty brutal harassment and some pretty aggressive electronic weapons in many cases, because they can get away with those things. And no one's really doing anything about it. And there's a lot of people that are caught in the crossfire right now relative to this bloodline war. And nobody knows what the hell it is. Not in any real way, because, again, they think they do. They always go, it's the Collins and the Rothschilds and the who else is out there? What are all the names, guys? I mean, how many elite bloodlines are there? I promise you guys, you never hear about the ones that I talk about. They're not even listed, but they're there. It's just a matter of what's their real last names. Does anybody even know? See, I don't. There's people that I know that are close to this where, I know the names they use. Is it their real names? Hell if I know. What is a real name? What is a real name? They're all made up. They've kind of figured this out, just like Hollywood. And if you think about it, Hollywood just knows they just can make things up over and over again. And then, well, hell, people just see it enough times and they begin to go like, that's reality. And they make it happen. It's trippy, but it's just how things work. Now, I want you to be more familiar with the Bloodline Wars. It's some material that I did in Las Vegas last year. And so I didn't explain a lot of it. But let me tell you something. I was getting quite a bit of material sent to me in really weird ways. So at the time, I was sort of communicating messages on behalf of certain people that said that they were within these groups and that they wanted to have their voices, I guess, heard. And so I kind of like said, all right, fine, since this is kind of coming in kind of strong here and everything like that, I'll just explain to people as I'm doing the material that this is from people that are in the bloodlines, and I'm simply passing this along as a message. Now, I wasn't trying to help. I wasn't trying to reinforce anything. It was just simply a matter of there is something that goes on that very few people have insights into because these people never speak publicly. And they were like, here's just a way for you folks to understand what the larger battle is. It's a little bit like guys like trying to merge like Nazis and Jews and say like, all right, here's how we're going to get you to get along. We're going to have a whole group of you Nazis make a bunch of babies with a bunch of Jews. And then we're going to have a whole bunch of you send one of your 3 kids over to the Jewish family if you're Nazi. And if you're a Nazi, you're going to send one of your kids over to the Jewish family. And this way, all of these people have no reason to kill each other off entirely because they'll know that some of their relatives are with the other group. It's something almost like that. I was told that something pretty much exactly like that happened. It may not be, quote, Nazis and Jews, but it's definitely bloodline families that hate each other. And this was one of the ways that they had a, quote, treaty going back a few generations. And now we're witnessing sort of the backlash from it because somewhere, I guess, around like about a decade ago, there was a huge double cross that occurred within the bloodline families. And they just simply didn't meet their end of the bargains. One group decided they want to dominate over the other and take control of everything. And here's a sad part. The one that wants to take control and dominate everything is the one that's a little bit like they like the idea of having a recruitable class of pedophiles and sex offenders that they protect in exchange for doing anything for them. That's scary as hell, folks, because they have the power to put pedophiles and sex offenders into jobs that most people can't get. Even if you lived your life flawlessly and went to college and did everything right and had all these great references for your jobs, they would still oftentimes find a way to hire one of these people with questionable track records before you. How? Why? Because the person never really has to do the job. They get all their direction from a person who knows how to do it. And they just tell them, hey, this is the decision you're supposed to make. And they go, okay, I'll still get all my porn. They go, yeah, just do what we say and sit in your desk and don't ever tell anybody what you are. This problem is so widespread in the United States. There's very few sex offenders that are genuinely being held accountable in the ways the system was established to hold them accountable, meaning to say that the registry is a fucking joke. That nearly anybody that's in that registry can then get a second or third name, if not more, and be different people in different parts of the country once they're in this mafia. It becomes like tradable identities. And if they get arrested, because I look at those Antifa arrests and I'm like going, these people were not born with these names. They were not born with these names. Some maybe, yeah, but not all of them. Those are fake names that the cult gave them because they were traffickers or sex offenders. Then when they get arrested in the public, they're all like, going, we're angry because we got doxxed. Who gives a shit? They just delete your fake name. And by the way, when they delete those fake names, if they had like a social security number attached to it, cha-ching. Hey, maybe make it a COVID death and you can get $72,000 to one of those Kaiser hospitals. Then life insurance for a family that never existed. Cha-ching, because they're the fake family of the fake character. So they all get life insurance money. Great, isn't it? And they don't even have to bury the person because they didn't really die. Guys, the funeral homes would be freaking off the Richter scale busy. In fact, if COVID was happening the way it is, those places would be the most valuable investment anywhere in the country. Can we agree? Have you been seeing the funeral homes stacking up? I don't see shit going on with funeral homes. They better start faking some things quickly because I'm just not buying it. There's 50,000 people a month that are dying from this shit in different states. I've been in these hospitals, guys. I'm sorry. That's just my nature. I had jobs that would give me access to the hospitals during COVID. This is all just being, it's bizarre, dude. The narrative itself is disinformation largely, what they're selling in the press. I'm not saying that it's not a thing. I'm just telling you that some of the effects of it are staged. Uh, they're not giving you real footage. And so if they're also fudging the numbers, then why are they doing it? All right, so let's talk a little bit. I'm going to take that off the screen, and then I'm going to give you some of my articles on the Bloodline Wars. Hang on. All right, hang on. I got to find it. It crept away from me. Here it is. Okay. All right, I know I just did a story, but I'm being urged to do this like right now about the Godfather. So they're telling me that they want me to just to let you know that the Godfather is about uranium, guys. It is the truth. It's really about our secret power structure, but the part they don't really explicitly tell you is uranium. And so what you're really supposed to do if you're trying to interpret the Godfather as a codex is to look for ciphers that involve the terminologies of uranium. Things like plutonium, for example, they're coded Pu. Okay, Pu is plutonium, Pu. Radon uranium is called 222. That's like its numeric code. So when you're watching this movie, you really need to start looking for ciphers and codes, paying attention to what is communicated with the terminology surrounding uranium. What's the atomic number? What's the element number? Are those names used within the naming conventions of the characters? Because you're going to find that they are. Okay. And then beyond that, it's not just that it's a puzzle and a cipher as far as that goes. It's going to tell you about Hollywood, government, gambling, the secret power structure, how they gain trusted relationships, how certain families gain trusted relationships, and how that was achieved. The part that they don't really explicitly tell you in the book, though, or the movie that you're supposed to figure out, where the book is effectively a codex, is that it was communicating details about uranium, okay? It was everything to do with uranium mining and things involving uranium was being communicated in this book, in this movie, okay? It's all about the uranium. The power that has been derived from those who knew everything about uranium. Here's a clue. Vito Corleone. Vit, to, core. Okay. Vit is another way of describing a process called vitrification, the glassification of uranium into rods. Okay, think about the word rod, uranium rod. Who else uses the name rod? Who else uses the name rod in tandem with ham radio bands? You're starting to understand. There is a secret power infrastructure surrounding uranium. It's one of the most valuable things that you can possibly purchase when it's been enriched. Highly enriched uranium is one of the most valuable things on the planet. What I would like you to do, a challenge to you, is to say, how did this become a thing? How did uranium become? How did highly enriched uranium, how did one small tiny amount of highly enriched uranium become more valuable than some of the most precious metals and substances anywhere on the earth? Who made that determination? Where does that power structure lead back to? Ask yourself that. Who decides what something's worth? When you answer that question, you're going to get the solution to this problem, really. And we're going to start figuring out the long-term solution to it, really. But you have to make up your mind what kind of world you want to live in. Do you want this uranium economy? And how do we reel it in a little bit? That's the big question. So watch The Godfather to understand. Puzo, think about it. All right, here's another one. All right, so this is very limited audience, but I think everybody who's been following the story. So involving these mobile intercepts, I'm being told, and they want you to know that Yeah, Puzo. Awesing you. They're Ozing you. This, okay? This is from the families that I'm being given this information just because some people that are insiders are effectively informing on the others that are insiders, and that what they want you to know is that these aren't really hacks and exploits as much as they are coordinated. They're coordinated hacks. They're ones that are known. They require participation of people that have ownership, just so you know. And that the big secret here is that a lot of people that have Bell Company interests do it under aliases, pseudonyms, surrogates, actors, puppet CEOs, that kind of thing. Why would that be a thing? Well, because it's very, very, media influence, okay? It's a big deal. And it's a little bit like you have something that other people want, and they're going to want to get it from you. And so a lot of the people that own phone companies and internet companies and things like that have learned to do is use surrogates and aliases or puppet CEOs or board of directors. And this is all done for safety, right? Initially, like they would all tell you, like, well, we have to keep ourselves safe. We have to keep the secret because we don't want people knowing about us because we need our secrecy. We need our privacy. It's that kind of thing, you know? Oh, yes and no. You know, there was a time when that was important, but now, like, all the methods that are being used to cover these things up and to fake and falsify them are so ridiculously over the top, and most people can kind of tell that it's happening, that it increases the suspicion, and it makes people try to find the real people even more. And then when you're looking for accountability, it makes it extremely challenging. So what they want me to tell you is that I had some technical information that I revealed last night to people that I knew were watching from law enforcement. So they have it now. But this is basically just to tell you that some of these exploits involving the 850 megahertz bands that have that upper frequency, those were coordinated internally, yet not quite at the corporate level. It was done more with insiders at a series of different companies that have a series of relationships that are more familial and bloodline in nature, and that they just work at different places and have ownership stock wise or direct ownership through these whatever. Okay. So I've identified hacks that seemed like splinter off. Those unfamiliar, like I used to be a wireless engineer, so there was some 850 megahertz bandwidth that's effectively at the core and foundation of all cellular communications in the United States. When we first started, there was only two companies that you could go through. There was a wireline carrier and a non-wireline carrier. What did that mean? It's not that important, but it just meant that one of the companies was owned by a traditional Bell company, a landline, one that provided regular phone service, okay? And that the other one would be a dedicated wireless company. They kind of abandoned this. It was kind of like an anti-competition thing or whatever, I think. I don't remember the exact reasons behind it, but that's kind of what was going on with that. And so I had about, I don't know, a long time at one of these Bell companies. And so what they're telling me that it's okay to say is that I learned at one of the companies that I personally was at, because I'm connected to one of these bloodline families, that they placed me there specifically without telling me that they had that ownership, because it kind of created some illusions for people that were in the know, but I didn't know. And so they want me to tell you now that in order for us to solve this, we're going to have to get past who owns what and start learning more about those relationships with people that are more at a deeper level within the government, law enforcement, and the military, because that's why it's confusing to them. It's not as simple as there being like a hack or a series of rogue hackers that are going around and doing this. It's coordinated, you guys. It's like somebody that knows what's owned frequency wise simply kind of tells everybody that's in the company, like, oh, well, it's too expensive to deploy that frequency, or we can't really. Those of you who are in the know who spent time with me over at, like, I was at one company for a long time. For those of you who have a technical and engineering knowledge that know about that, that's one of the companies, okay? And I've been at another company that's doing this.
But again, I had no involvement, guys. I'm just telling you, like some of these things that are being done, how do I say it? It's like you have the regular network that's for everybody. That's like you're a customer, you sign up for service and you get your phone and everything like that. What they've learned to do is for nearly every carrier, that there's effectively a secondary network that has a small bit of bandwidth that's been sectioned off that we're being pushed to, those of us that have been placed into this system. This allows a select group of people to be able to do everything that I've been telling you about, take things off the transactions. And so when you try to report it, since there's such an officiality to it that's unofficial, you see what I'm saying? It requires like senior directors and technical officers and things like that to be in the know, but not really talking about what's happening because they compartmentalize all this work and have the people do it. This is going to hold true for a small piece of the bandwidth in 850 megahertz cellular, some of the PCS bandwidth, and they do this in different markets in different ways depending on the frequency allocation. So what they're doing is just taking a small bit of frequency, and all the people that are involved with this, they just agree that when you get a phone, for example, that you're going to be pushed to this other network that looks exactly like a regular cell phone network. It functions like a regular cell phone network and everything else like that, except that in this case, it gives this group just the ability to look at everything and monitor everything. And so they sold this to people like in the military and the government as I guess you could say it was like a way to just sort of like have in the modern era, like they knew that there was going to be information containment issues, secrets that needed to be kept, that it was nearly impossible, or people that were, persons of interest that had high level knowledge that could be damaging if they were to reveal it. And so they had to have a way to like monitor. This was just a little bargain that was made to monitor those people until they knew they were okay. Well, that system, once it was brought into these other people's, they just abused it. So that's become part of the targeting program, for those of you who are in knowledge about that. And that's why it's so confusing to people trying to investigate it on all levels. Okay. So like me as a person in the wireless industry, I'm clueless about it because I didn't know about this secondary thing. There's people that are investigators going, well, how come the wireless companies don't know about it? Well, because at the high levels, a lot of them don't. And it's at this very select pool of people that do. Get it? Anybody who wants to work on me more specifically on this issue, I think we know the frequencies, but we're going to have to get together to do the measurement and detection. So reach out, please.
Slightly off topic, folks, but I want you to take a look at me then and now. Big difference, huh? Healthier? What do you think? That was right after I left my parents' house in Estacada. I was getting shocked really bad there. Straight up. That's the truth. It was making me, it was like draining my plasma. I don't know what else to say. I was getting thinner and thinner and thinner. And I could actually see my rib cage kind of caving in a little bit, and my stomach was sinking in a little bit. I had no belly really when I was leaving there. And it was aggressive. Now I have a belly, which I'm proud of. I have no problems having a pooch, because it says to me that, things are going in the right direction. But I want you to look at how thin my face looks there compared to now. It was not a healthy environment. And it was pretty bad. So, and having to do this and go through this information was very challenging, because I had to accept this reality that people that were this close to me would either participate in or allow something this brutal to happen to me, and brutally disregard my existence at certain times as a human being, literally sending me a message on my 45th birthday that I did not exist to them. I was in the same house in the other room being shocked. And the rare occasions that I would enter into their environment, because I had no money, I had no other place to go. And I had to use the bathroom a couple times on my 45th birthday while I was there. They didn't say a word. Didn't say a word to me. And they didn't forget. They just didn't acknowledge that I existed. And other days, it's bizarre because on the average day, they might at least go, hey, or hey, how you doing? Or what's going on? At least sometimes. That day, my birthday, they made sure to like, does he exist? I don't know. Why? Maybe because they wanted people to think that I was born on another day. You think? Pretty clever. Maybe that's why you don't like, well, I'm not going to get into that detail, but look, guys, accept it or not, but everybody's going to know about this, the Bloodline family thing, man. And, you know, the way that's been going on until now, you know, maybe some people, no one deserves this kind of secrecy. I'm sorry. This kind of secrecy that the people that have been doing this have been maintaining is not deserved. It's being so widely abused right now. And there's people that have access to the technology that I just explained to you that support child traffickers and child predators, because the technology that was used on me is also used to keep children in submission and controlled. That's why I know so much about it. And I want you guys to understand something about this that I feel inside, why I get so upset sometimes. It's not so much about what happened to me. It's the knowledge that I have that what happened to me can happen to people that can't just stand up and drive away. It can happen to people that aren't 18 years old yet, and they have no control over where they get to go. And they will spend the first 18 years of their life in one of these houses where this is happening to them, and they'll learn to accept that it is normal. They will have no idea that the way their little brains are shaking and the way their little bodies are twitching is abnormal, and it is not supposed to happen to them. And these monsters are out there, and they're being supported en masse. They're being allowed to do this. And people that do it to these children are addicted to their plasma. Just like a vampire wants to drink blood, they want the plasma, sometimes of their own children. It is that addictive. It is like crack cocaine combined with fucking heroin. It's a speedball of plasma that gives them access to something that most people do not get. It is more influence over the biofield, and it means everything to them. They amplify everything I just told you about the Trinity of Human Energy. I want you to think about this. What I'm showing you here, my biofield is part of why this face is thinner. Do you guys understand that? As my pride, my courage, my dignity came back and restored, and I got respect again, because some people weren't allowed to dominate the narrative surrounding me and my reputation. That's why I look better today. That's why I have flesh in my face. That's why I have meat on my bones. That's why I have a belly. And I'm going to make it as fat as I can fucking make it. I don't care if I have to eat 10 bowls of freaking Fruit Loops every day, as cheap as it is. I don't give a shit. I'm going to get fat despite you. Not that bad, don't worry. I prefer to be healthy, guys. But I'm not happy with this group of people. The reason why you do that to a person, why you don't say happy birthday as their own son, why you make a point to do that, is because you're trying to chip away at the biofield until the person accepts death and withers. You're reminding that person that you don't want them to exist. And those of you who are okay with those people still to this day and choose them over me, as if you have to, because I never asked you to, but I'm sure they did. See, I never asked that you choose them over me. I just asked that you listen to me and that you be fair. I just asked that you review everything critically and ask yourself, are you sure they're okay? Are you sure they're the ones that are right? Are they really worth defending? Because if you think they are, then I got to think that maybe you have a floor that's called Pergo, that also shocks people. That's all. And maybe that's why you're so comfortable with them doing it to me, because they did. And I have proof to measure it, so I don't mind saying it out loud. I have evidence. I can show it to you right now. It did suck my plasma. Would you like to see the process? Sending light tasing sensations to the arches of your feet and to your skull. What they do is they actually wire electricity in to the floor tiles, something underneath them that sends these tingling like light electrical sensations, like tasing. You get tased all day. It never stops. But it's not like it's just like the lowest possible level that just vibrates all the water inside your body, where you're going it does that to your water frequency all day. It never stops. It's designed to change your behavior. It's designed to put you into submission. While it's doing that, you're turning slowly into a vegetable. It's supposed to give you Parkinson's, and it did work on one of my relatives. They died. Cancer and Parkinson's. I mean, he was getting up there in years, but and I've had the Parkinson's signal delivered to me to know, folks, that a lot of people who get it, it's not because they just got it. They're being delivered it. I need you to understand that. This is an artificially created disease, every bit as much as it could be one that's just happening. All right? It is a nuclear process. It involves plumbing, water frequency, and doing everything I just told you. Vibrating the water in a person's body until they start going like this. Because your body is getting tuned into the water. See, and the way they do this is they send magnetic resonance into the water lines that are close to you, and they can actually bind the magnetic, the nuclear materials in it. They can bind to your DNA as a person, as an individual person, to where you get vibrated, and it just shakes your whole brain, your whole body, like you have your own private earthquake. And if you're in a controlled environment, they can do this to you day and night, and you can't get away from it. And the bizarre part about it is that when it's happening to you, the part that I will concede to that's extremely effective is that it's hard for you to walk away from it as much as it hurts. It's like Stockholm syndrome with an electrical field. It is the most effed up thing you'll ever experience. And I pray and hope to God that you never, ever do. Because I did, and I do. There's hardly any places that I can go anymore where they don't seem to be able to get this done eventually. And the FBI is not interested in my information, even though I can show spectrum analysis and measurements and provable, tangible data. Now, why do you suppose, knowing that Stargate Plumbing, probably just a random plumbing company name across the FBI, at suites 1 and 3, 13, I don't know, maybe that's random. What is Stargate Plumbing? Maybe I should look up their business records and find out. My guess is it's going to have some really hokey, fake sounding owner name. I'm going to do some research on that, I think. I'm just showing you guys this for a reason. That's why I paused it. This wasn't easy, and it's not like I'm looking for sympathy, folks. When I explain to you that I'm lacking resources sometimes, I'm telling you what this group, the mystery group, let's not say who exactly they are, but ones that help facilitate this, don't want me to be alive. It seems to me like they would just like to push a delete button and act like I don't exist now. And people that could help me in my current state right now, I'm letting them know that there's a lot of nice, benevolent strangers out there that are helping me, but not a single one of them has my last name. Did you know that? All the people that are helping me right now, not a single one of them are named Cruz, and not a single one of them are a Democrat. What does that tell you about the kindness in some of these other people's hearts? And why for years and years, even when I was different than them, I always stood up for them. Because here I am and they're standing up for me. God bless you and thank you. To me, this is the great work that you did that for me, that you're doing it for me, all of you who do. That's huge. And it's touched my heart in a way that I can't even describe to you. You kept me afloat. You literally kept me alive. Those were conservatives, guys. They were Christians in many cases. Not all. Some are atheists. Some are agnostic. Some even are mystic. But let me tell you something. They're different than me. And they took a chance. And they just kind of trusted a guy that looked a little different and was from a background that maybe they shouldn't always trust. And maybe they don't even. That's okay if they don't. But those are the people that have kept me afloat. It's their support, spiritually, financially, all of it. It's them. I was abandoned by this group. They don't care. They're not going to show any love for me publicly ever, as far as I can tell. And you know something? All I did was ask some people to clear the record with me. Will you please tell me what's true and what's not true? Because I don't want to believe anything that I'm finding here. I'm willing to accept that somebody could have doped all these records to make me believe that you people are the personification of Satan on earth. I don't want to believe it. I don't. But there I was, confronted with it. And it was so freaking obvious that something like that is true, that I had to ask because it's my nature. I couldn't just sit on it and go like, no, that didn't happen. But I also couldn't sit on it, and not say something, because that's just how I am. You've probably learned that by now. Gabe doesn't shut up. I'm going to ask. Hey, family member of mine, why are these people saying that you're a mafia and a thug and a mob and this kind of thing? Hey, family of mine, how come these people are saying that you're into cronyism and that you fire everybody whenever you go someplace and hire all your friends and increase their salaries after letting go a whole bunch of people that had normal salaries? It doesn't seem like you're doing it for efficiency's sake. It just seems to me like you go different places, fire everybody, hire your friends, change the culture completely, and leave. It happens a lot of places where, I don't know, vital infrastructure is involved, education, nuclear materials, information flow, national security. Is it any wonder that you hated the last president so much? That's all. And those who wondered like why I was friendly towards those folks and why I still am, this is why. Not exclusively. It's just the right thing to do. If these people did not send me a dime, I promise you, I would hold the same positions, and you can go back to my material in 2017 when they weren't sending me anything, and I held these positions. I have many articles telling people, I don't think you fully understand what's going on with information flow in this country, and that there may be some people that are conservative that have some solutions that you should at least be open to, even if you're historically a Democrat. Because even if you don't like our current president, there's some things that are going on behind the scenes with information flow that if we don't get them solved quickly, then we may lose all this. And I hope that that interests you as a person that just cares about children or just cares about our future in general. I don't even have kids of my own, you guys, and I gave more of a shit than most people. Like, you don't care about the can't we just set aside our differences and just say, forget all that? What about your kids? Are you okay with these social changes? Because they're not designed to make people more understanding. They're designed to destabilize us. They're designed to make us infertile. They're designed to keep us from breeding. Who wants that? Whose country is that consistent with, where they try to limit reproduction by telling you you can only have so many children? I understand the law is no longer there, but think about it. How would one child only rule manifest in America from a foreign nation if they wanted to do it through social engineering and cultural change? You would hire insiders that are cultural leaders. You would do things that are social disruption exercises like Antifa does, all encoded, heavily encoded. It is so LARPy. I really don't even understand how people just accept them and get scared of it. Number one, stop getting scared of these people. I know it looks spooky, but just stop being afraid of them. Stop being afraid of them. Because that's where you're giving them energy. You get it? You need to start looking at these people like you're walking into a bee swarm and think about it like you're a beekeeper. I want you to watch like More Than Honey. It's a great documentary. I've done an article on it. But in More Than Honey, I'll take that face down, sorry. In More Than Honey, you see how certain beekeepers handle it. You see an industrial beekeeper that hauls his bees around in trucks from place to place, throws them in almond trees for a few months, takes them to another state, throws them in some other blossoms for a month or whatever, takes them to another state, does the same thing. Then at the end of the year, he goes, dag nabbit, I lost half my bees. Shit. I wonder what's happening. I feed them sugar water and chemicals instead of what they're used to. I haul them from state to state where they have no sense of balance or frequency. What the fuck's going on? Well, geez, dude, what do you think's going on? If you do that to people, they don't survive. I mean, yeah, they do. But do they thrive? Some. Actually, some thrive from that. I guess that's what the more aggressive bees that they talk about in the documentary about. But I don't want to talk about the bees in the classic sense. It's just that there's a way to handle it when you go into a swarm. And the ones that have mastered it, that don't even wear the suits and never get stung, what do you notice about all of them? They're always these kind of cool, stoic old guys, just, calm as can be with their cigar. Just, yeah, I'm shaking my cane and knocking this bee. Really, like this old guy from the Swiss Alps and everything. He just smokes a cigar. He's as calm as can be, but he shakes the bee nest. It goes like boom, boom with his cane. They don't sting him. Why? He just disrupted the hell out of them. He literally shook them from the bee's nest, just like to get them to go into this thing. And they didn't attack him. They go into it. Again, he's got his technique down right with the smoke and things, but there's more to it than that. Others, yeah, they get stung if they try to do it similarly. That's the brain frequency thing. It really is. And what I'm saying to folks is that, I don't know, I was going to show you guys an article on, I'm not sure I want to do it now. Actually, yeah, I do. Really quick. Because what I just showed you guys in that article, this one here, where I said Bloodline Wars, wireless telecommunication hackers are insiders. I'm going to show you something really quick. This is my business card, okay? I just found it today. Maybe I should, I guess it's too late, so who cares? But that's an old business card of mine, just to give you guys an idea that I did in fact work in that capacity. So again, if you're an old coworker of mine, you must know I'm really me, because I only got a couple of these and I can't believe I found it, guys. This is like the only sign that I have left, aside from all my certificates of training and everything like that, that I worked as a professional radio frequency engineer. I mean, I have all my credentials or whatever, but that's the business card that I had while I was doing radio frequency design. So RF stands for radio frequency engineer. And so I was at this place in Longview. We used to all commute like an hour to get there from Portland area. That's where it's close to, Portland, Oregon. All right. And that's where I went back when I was doing my series of articles. That's where I filmed this.
I bet there's probably nothing to it, you know, passing by them every day. There's probably nothing to that. Probably harmless, you know, not really a competitor, nobody to worry about. But perhaps maybe they are. I'm not sure, you know, I'll let you figure out what I'm discussing here and who I'm talking about, but later on that there might have been some shady things going on. Anyways. So this is my old office, guys, just letting you know. Right there. Nothing nefarious, guys. Had a lot of good times in here. Designed some amazing networks. But I'm also familiar that, well, there was a repeater put on top of this building. And so when I started doing in-building DAS, I started learning more about how that all works. And I was like, man, I wonder why they had such a high-powered DAS or a high-power repeater. It was just a bidirectional amplifier over our heads. You know, I mean, it was, guys, we're okay. I'm okay. Nothing happened. But I wonder why. Fuck, it's cold. It's cold. I kind of feel like we were human guinea pigs in a way, guys. In a lot of ways. And doesn't mean we were. But see, what I've learned, guys, is that some of us that were there, we kind of hived together. We're hived. We had this antenna aimed over our head. And whether those guys believe it or not, what I've learned about technology is that space and time don't exist in the way that we thought it did. We exist in a universal plasma field of oscillating frequencies, and a bunch of us used to spend time together in that office, okay? All day together. We spent time together. And you know something? I like to think that most of us got along, that we actually liked each other and we cared about each other, so that the hiving that happened was not inorganic. I genuinely liked a lot of you guys. I really did. And I do. I continue to. I still have a lot of love for a lot of you in my heart. But I want you to talk to me a little bit about these frequencies that are in the prime bands. I'd like to know more about what's going on relative to those frequencies that are voice channel 777. I want to know what's going on with that. And on the AT&T side, I think the frequencies that are being used are on channel 691 and 1019.
I might have that off. But
I think there's something happening there, guys, that's relative to water frequency and a manipulation of some of these bands in select environments. And I don't know who I'm supposed to go to because the FCC won't care. It's not like this is the kind of thing you can go to the average person. And I need somebody to work with me. And by now, hopefully, as I'm here and I slip into this deeper, you know you're talking to just more than me.
that's just a hint for some folks that doubt that we can do some things with technology. That's all. Because the thing you got to start understanding is the way that the reason why I specifically sometimes change is there's a reason. And it's not like I'm changing. It's that we were in a hived environment. And so what happens is because we're a plasma field and solid matter doesn't exist, that it's not like we're changing in front of you or some shit. It's that we're hived. And so sometimes when I'm talking to you here, you're going to hear a little bit of the essence of somebody else. And some of those people did a lot of work in the wireless industry, and some are veterans. That's all I'm telling you guys. I'm not claiming false valor or stolen valor type things here, guys. It's not like that. It's just simply to give you an indication that I do get assistance relative to helping me understand concepts because of how this all works. I understand things much deeper than the average person can in some cases because I get help. I'm hived. I'm hived in a really good way, actually. So it's not something that bothers me. That's all I was trying to explain with that. It's something that I kind of appreciated over time, even though I didn't agree to the way it happened, that now I'm just trying to make good use of it. Okay? So just know that, yeah, you'll notice right here. I want you to pay attention because this is where it really starts to happen. It's in this lip. And that's when you know I get the help. Okay? And I won't talk about it much more than that, but people who know what I'm talking about and who I'm talking about, they'll get it because they'll see it. And they're going to go, what the hell? It's not just because I'm good at that, guys. But that plays a role in it. It helps. Because I've always been able to adapt into other things that way. So my voice changes and my likeness sometimes changes. And I don't need technology. I don't. But I don't do masking. That's all I'm telling you guys. There's ways that you can achieve things with opacity layers of plasma, and that space and time don't really exist. So you get help. If you know to look for it, you can access it. And they can access you and you can access them. And if it works for everybody and it helps everybody and it keeps more people safe, why not? And so I started getting more and more help from the sidelines a couple years ago, especially when I was kind of ousted by the family and kind of told, go to hell. And that's when I started getting the most spiritual. Let me tell you guys, I couldn't have survived it without them. They're such beautiful people, and they do care about what's going on in our country right now. And the one thing I remember about a lot of the people that helped me the most, especially, is how much they care about truth, how much they care about just having facts to base our decisions on, because that's the kind of groups that we were in. We did not have it tolerated to have information. Like, we didn't make decisions based on feelings alone. Intuition plays a role in everything you do, yeah. But I had to back up every single intuition that I had about anything. I must back up in every case as an engineer in that role that I was in, and as well as my peers. It must be backed up with data. It must be backed up with something that I can tangibly show somebody else and say, fact. Here is the fact. Here you go. Here's a statistic. Here's a percentage. Here's how it correlates to this and why I need this solution for this much money, or why I have to reject that decision because it's too much money, or blah, blah, blah. Whatever the case was, guys, it was part of the whole thing involving, just the work. Okay. Sorry, I don't mean to go excessively into that part, but I wanted this out there because I do need allies right now from those groups. I need those people that understand what's happening right now, that, you know, there was a time where it made sense for quite a few people to just sort of like stay inside their world. And I think that we're going to establish bridges right now in ways that no one's going to have to do that. And I think that it's doing damage right now to have people feeling like they need to hide or stay in the sidelines. I think what we really need now is the real exodus to say, no, no, we can't do this anymore. We must reject this information cycle and begin something ourselves. We need to start something independently, that we are top down, you know, with transparency to everyone else, that we have some degree of say in, because right now they won't even acknowledge that people like us exist with this media cycle. Because I think they understand that once people like me and these other groups that understand what we know, once we all get together and put this all out, it'll be such a contradictory set of information compared to what you're used to, that's one of the reasons why my entire channel exists. It's to give you the basic building blocks of understanding everything that's going to happen soon. And I've just been learning that as it goes along. I mean, I get so much externally that helps me put all this together. I feel even weird putting Gabriel Cruz research on it, because it really does feel like a collective work. It feels like more of a collective hive mind work, the entire energetics and archaeometry series. I feel like more like I sat in a room with a group of people that I really loved and cared about, and that we just sort of got together and put it all together, and that I was just the person that at the end pieced it together and edited it. Because it does feel that way. It feels a hell of a lot more like they were like, well, put this over there or try this. You know, it didn't really necessarily feel like I just did it by myself. I felt guided, as I do guided in my daily decisions. And so some people have angels and I have my friends. And I don't know where they are, in what time slot or time assignment this is all occurring from entirely in every case. I just know that they're incredibly beautiful people, intelligent people, and strong-minded people, and they do care for this country like I know nobody's business. It's amazing. They do have a deep, sincere love for this country that I know they would never falter on. And I know that I know that if once they understood what I really can offer, that there's no way in hell they would ever turn their backs on me in any real way. And people in my family, the one that I used to call my family, should know that about them. They're not weak, and they're not easily fooled, and especially by you, especially going forward. They understand that some of you duped them and got you to believe some nonsense. So I'm just letting you know that. We're smarter than you, more talented. What you had on us informationally was just that we didn't understand the plasma field. That's it. A bunch of us just didn't get it. And once we do, you have to understand what a group of engineers, especially ones that used to understand wireless tower concepts, once you can apply that same set of knowledges to the human body and brain, imagine the brain as a base station connected to your brain is like an amplifier driving antennas that radiate outward. I mean, every aspect of a cell phone tower as its infrastructure mirrors a human machine, and the way machines connect to one another at a energetic level. Psychoenergy, thoughts become things. Plasma to plasma transfers brain to brain, heart to heart. You have all these different plasma processes that literally are binding matter. I mean, the reason why you have such intense hatreds and such intense loves and passions and things like that is because of this process. These people are leaving essences behind in you. That's why you can't forget them. They're imprinting you, whether you hated them or loved them, whether you're repulsed by them or lusted for them. In either case, they're imprinting you. The more you do this activity, the more you hate them, the more they imprint in you, the more they cause you to be off resonance. Do you understand that's the power of Christ consciousness? Do you understand that's the power of forgiveness? You're taking away the main gun that these people have, that they have aimed at you and fixated on you. which is drawing in your hatred for that person. And you're taking that power away from them by saying, I forgive you. I'm not going to forget what you are, though. I know not to turn my back on you, but I forgive you, because if I don't, I'm going to hate you. And I'm not going to give you that. That's the decision I made for a lot of people. And I didn't do it for them. And I didn't do it for Christ. I did it for me. I did it so I wouldn't lose the weight in my face. I did it so I would maintain my girth. Because you know what happens when I hate somebody? They get my body. They get my plasma. I sweat. I get angry. I focus on them. I think about them. I get angry about them. And that programs that frequency into my water cells. And it programs it into my blood. And when it's in my blood, it goes into my plasma. And the more I do this, and the more I think about it, the sweat starts to pour. The skin gets sweaty. You look like a mess. Your eyes are droopy. They get the dark rings. You're pissed. You know why your body looks so emaciated? You know why it looked like, not that, but that? Because I spent hour after hour, day after day, thinking about how much I could not stand the people that were doing this to me, how much my heart was filled with hate for them because of everything they were doing to me and had done, and all the things they had neglected, the people that they had harmed through their neglect alone, and they would not answer to it. And I was letting it drain me. And they knew it. I think they were kind of enjoying it. It didn't, when it left me, it went to somebody else. So that was my biofield. You understand that? So this is me getting my biofield back. That's getting your power back. That's literally getting your energy back. When you go from what's on the right to what I'm looking like now, this is me getting my flesh back in my face. I got it back. Because now I know more often than not just to disregard these people. I do what they do to me. I just try to forget. I want to focus on something that I'm building, not focus on what's something that happened that's dragging me down and anchoring me to a physical reality that I didn't choose. I didn't ask for. I didn't want to be born into that. Born into a group of people that were going to decide when I turned 40 some years old that it was time? Yep. Well, that's enough years for you, kid. Time to turn you into fresh organs. Let's see if we can get your brain dead quick. Just doesn't work though, does it? Why? That's why guys, you wouldn't believe one of these people. They would go like, "You've got a really strong brain, Gabe." Wasn't a compliment. This is like, what does it take? Takes a lot. It's pretty strong. It is a strong brain. Strong brain. By the way, and last I checked, it's 3 points higher than your smartest elder, who you've given all the privilege, the class, the cronyism, hell, even a job at the Department of Energy. That's the part that was just embarrassing to me. Can you imagine, guys? Would you go work at a place where your own father is the head of human resources? I couldn't bring myself to do it. Personally, I would feel embarrassed about that. I'd be like, going, "Are you sure I should take a job here?" Yeah, well, you're qualified. I mean, yeah, I mean, sure they were, but I don't know. Seems kind of cronyism to me. Seems kind of like nepotism to me. I don't know. I was gonna play this one on face masking, but I'm kind of running low on time, and I'm not sure I want to end on this. Let's see, what is it? This one's about 12 minutes. That'd put me in kind of close. Because this happened to me, guys. I need you to know this. Trinities of deception involve a person that's part face mask. So they have one character that looks mostly like the fake person. They got another person that doesn't really look like them and it's just CGI, you know? And then a lot of times you got another person that's just I don't know, they like they'll play them maybe with like makeup and prosthetics, and if they have to be in public, they might be like a cousin or a distant relative or something like that. And so I was trying to like explain the concept deeper tonight, but I don't know. Um, I've talked about it before. It's basically where a lot of these characters that you're finding on the news, and this is just a classic example of it. This is one case where I literally saw this news story on a news channel. I'm just letting you know, guys, this is not a real person. And they presented themselves as a technical expert who's a chief technical officer of a security company in Israel, and claiming that they had all this information on a Bluetooth virus. And they were presented as that being a real human being when that's actually a face mask. And they actually were interviewed on RT America. I don't think that that was like Russia disinformation, guys. I think that's the American wing uh, interviewing a person that they probably knew was not qualified. They probably knew that this person isn't really who they say they are. Now, why they would let this person do it, I don't know. I tend to think that the whatever's going on with the media, guys. I mean, like I've had conversations with people that actually know things, relative to like how Russians perceive television stations and media, and they think RT America is a joke. They don't defend it. So I wonder like how it's that we're here in America that we actually think that that's kind of an accurate representation. I don't know. I mean, I guess it does have some degree of ownership or whatever, but what I was told is like, no, they wouldn't watch that shit. And it's not necessarily even propaganda for us. So go figure. But they tend to watch things that are just more scientific, that delve into science-based concepts that we don't ever talk about over here. They'll actually do things that are real UFO disclosure. They actually have some pretty interesting things. Like to them, ancient aliens and a lot of the things that we consider like on the History Channel to be entertaining would be a total freaking joke. They wouldn't even like go like, what is this? This isn't even true. you know? And I'm just learning more and more, guys, about this. Like today I read an article where the Russian security services even warned America, not America, they just warned everybody about the Soros Foundation, that they're funding a lot of the movements that are here in the United States that are destabilizing our country. And they gave us a warning, guys. I don't know if you know this. I can show this article for you, actually. A lot of people forget this, guys, but like, and I was saying this to somebody earlier, a friend of mine. I was like, "You remember this, guys? Like, Russia is telling us now that we should be watching out for Soros because he's funding a lot of the things that are destabilizing America, and he doesn't actually care about the issues. He's doing it to pay off people to destabilize our country." Notice that we're not listening to them now, and the FBI is actually trying to vilify them and turn them into the enemy. And then, not the only time Russia stepped in and said, "Hey, America, we'd really like to be your friends there. Can we tell you about some people that are going to try to bomb you?" And they said, "Hey, stay out of our business, Russia. Go back to where you come from and leave us alone. We can handle it on our own. Move along now. Nothing to see here." Boom. Almost like the FBI wanted it to happen. There it says that the Russian government warned U.S. authorities that Boston Marathon bomber Tamerlan Tsarnaev was a violent radical Islamist more than a year and a half before the April 2013 bombing, but authorities missed multiple chances to detain him when he was traveling to and from Dagestan for terror training, according to a soon-to-be-released congressional report. Yeah, but I'm sure that got all forgotten. Who's talking about it today? Who's giving them credit for warning us? You notice this, guys? They didn't give them any credit. None at all. You always learn about these things after the fact, right? They tell you a couple years afterwards instead of like, oh, by the way, we just learned that Russia tried to warn us of a potential bombing in America. These are kind of things that, like, if it was a European nation, they would just tell us, or they would be open about it, or it wouldn't be whatever. But no, they got to but think this through a little bit, guys. Like, they've tried to warn us about different terrorist events, and then they always get slapped back. My own aunt is banned and blacklisted by Russia. Truth. No bullshit. I can show you the article, guys. For those who don't know. Yeah, so this is the article that was put out. American media really didn't even cover this part. But you'll see here it says Russia has blacklisted 4 U.S. Department of Justice officials: Charles Wilkinson, Ethan Ray Aronson, Catherine Warma, and Norman Barbosa, related to last year's detention of Russian citizen Roman Seleznev. So, and then my uncle Ricardo he's my blood uncle. He's the husband of Catherine Warma. So, just straight up with you guys. I mean, I have to tell you that, that's a thing. And so I have a contrarian opinion on these things to some of my family members who have challenges with Russia and don't, have the same. I'm fine with Russia, you guys, personally. I mean, it doesn't mean I'm some asset of theirs. I'm okay with them. They seem like they're trying to help us. They seem like they would like to be a good partner. And that we have, I think personally, Nazis in America that are just saying, like, you have no role in the future of world perceptions, and we're going to block you out of everything. And they have Western partners, and then you get into the whole NATO alliances, and they just kind of create like this wall, it's like its own Cold War of like those interests, which are really just, it's sort of like Nazism just rebooted into NATO. And then surrounding country, the Russian nation, which is really advanced when it comes to sciences and especially energetics. Guys, they know all about pyramidal energy. They know all about energetics. And they tried to warn us when we had terrorist events that are going to happen here. So can everybody just start to like get past this bullshit where they're blaming them for everything, or at least even buying it for a second? Don't believe it, guys. I mean, critically review it. They might do some things sometimes. So I'm not saying always trust them. Of course not. I wouldn't say that about even anybody. But you must know there's a deeper agenda going on, folks. And I think that what it really amounts to is it's similar to Bosnia. They went and destroyed Bosnia because they could. It was a smaller place where they could get away with it. If they could do the same thing to Russia now, they would like to. And it's simply because they're trying to prevent the energetics research. I promise you that's where it all goes back to, folks. It's really this. I know from my own personal experiences, when I studied energetics at a deeper level with meters and cameras and everything, every time I get a new device, it's like they aggressively try to F everything up and cause it to not happen. Every single time, man, you would not believe it. It is like spy versus spy bullshit 2.0, all kinds of things, doing things with my packages, stalling my ability to get to my packages, just making it to where I can't do shit with it. And then after I get the meters or something like that, then it'll be like, let's do something to keep him from going on his trip, or let's cause some drama. I mean, really, over and over again, guys. It is these people, and I promise you, energetics, human energetics, the Trinity of Human Energy is everything they don't want you to know. Know it, live it, learn it, all of it. Please do. The more you get what's happening external from this face of yours and from your skeletal structure, and you learn how to master that field, and you find others that can do it with you, holy, you are tapping into something super powerful. So don't let anybody tell you this doesn't exist. There is scientific evidence that this is a real thing. I am showing people day in and day out. My Energetics 11 presentation is really the definitive marker for it, guys, where once I had it started, where I explained to you thoughts become things in part 1 and 2, then part 3, I go into sexual energy. Part 4, I go into more about sexual energy, actually, but that gets into more about how a person who's the focus of sexual energy as one main figurehead becomes like a magnet of thoughts. They actually absorb it from the collective consciousness of those who have sexual attraction for them. And so I talked about it both within part 3, I talk about it within our culture, like things like pornography or sex work, things like that nature. Like, why are those people exploited so aggressively? Why are some of the men and women that are placed in the adult film industry selected for their genetics? And why do you notice that they make a goal to give the vast majority of them, if it's possible, they really go after them to give them tragic endings, to get them elevated with positive orgone radiation at first, to where they're really like generating lots of sexual energy and sexual attraction, but they always want to do something to like, boom, smack them right towards the end and say like, all right, your career's over, get the hell out of here, and then all kinds of the degradation and things like that. And so I talk about that relative to human energy and why that's such a coordinated effort, and the things that could possibly be done to correct that. And then part 4, I talk about Hedy Lamarr, again, relative to sexual energy and inventions. She invented code division, multiple access, spreads. She didn't invent that, sorry. She invented spread spectrum, which went on to form into like Wi-Fi technologies for encryption, as well as CDMA technology on cell phones. Part 5, I get into on energetics, the concept of sacrifice and what is happening within sacrifice culture. Why are they spilling blood into the soil in a certain hilltop, for example? Why is that something that they do? What are the materials they're trying to bind within your human body to the soil, to their thoughts? I mean, and how does that process work? That's what part 5 is about. Part 6, I get into Brian De Palma's film work, like The Fury and Raising Cain, because his films tend to delve into themes involving psychokinesis, cybernetics, but then he integrates them with these sort of like mystery, suspense, and horror film genres, which is really interesting, I guess. So I talk about that. Part 7, I get into everything involving The Fury, his film, and brainwave technology. Why do they measure brainwave? What is the millivolts? Like, what does that measurement equate to? When they do these psychic research tests, or they measure your electricity with an e-meter, things like that I talk about. Part 8 and 9 is heavy into discussing all the military documentation about everything I just discussed with you in different ways. One, I discuss it more about psychotronic generators, which are suckers of your plasma. These are the things like I've been stuck in at times when I was in certain controlled environments and they were able to shock me. I was in a quote psychotronic generator when I was in those places, and I can show you the evidence of it and all the measurable signals. This is not a story I made up. It has signatures to it. I have video evidence of measuring all of them, and I can show you, even in my video footage, I hold up what the safe percentages are, or rather the safe levels are of electrical fields relative to the room that I was in. So you can see that they were 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 sometimes times more than safe levels. I mean, beyond, unsafe. These are designed to harm you. And so I have that. That's part 8 and 9. And then 9 is more about overall, like the gateway experience and, everything involving the signal flow within the human body and how it externalizes and everything else like that. Then part 10 is really when it all culminated into, holy shit, what happens with the love aspect? Because after I'd gotten past all the dark and tragic things, then I learned that all those things I understood about trauma and death and programming people with negative energies, that all you have to do is flip that switch 180 degrees, and now you're into positive building blocks, things that involve architecture, blueprints, planning, that involve helping one another, cooperation, coexistence, making love, being in peaceful states, people that are feeling more lustful, that are feeling more energetic, that are feeling more just in general like they want to experience life. Okay. Whereas on the opposite spectrum, trying to anchor us into, right, the dormancy, staying still, shocking, static, things of that nature. They know how much energy they can derive by keeping you stationary and stuck in one place and surrounded by a 60 hertz E field, electrical field. They can take your energy. You'll get, look, not everybody gets thinner, but they'll still take your energy. They'll still get your plasma platelets from you. They've learned the process on how to do this, folks, and integrate it into your plumbing without you even knowing it. So learn how to reverse hack it. That's all I'm telling you. Even if that's happening, like this is when, learn the spiritual component of this. Learn how to transmute negative energy using your human machine so that it doesn't take you over. You can make the decision, okay, this is a negative energy environment and I can't control every aspect of it right now, except can I? Can I? Don't assume that you can't. Don't assume that if one of these signals starts to entrain or something like that, like I've talked about, that you can't do something. That's all. So part 10 is about how you change it to a loving vibration, how you change it to, and I have evidence that this has happened in my own life, that somebody that I focused on, that I loved very intensely and even asked to marry me by the coast, that the effect that had on the two of us and the bond that we had, that we shared, and the friendship that we shared was exponential because of where it occurred at. It was by the water, it was by the land, and it maintained. I still have a lot of respect for that person, even though they got married to somebody else. It didn't really stop my respect and admiration for them. It was still a very strong, genuine thing, letting go, but healthily, and saying, wow, I respect that person. And it's radiated in such a beautiful way. And it fills my heart up too, to know that I'm even capable of doing that, because I wasn't always that good in relationships. And it was such a learning experience for me to have that. So I did that in part 10 because I actually had tangible evidence, like, wow, this is all really happening. This 33-degree thing and all the love and the energy, and trippy. So by the time I got to part 11, it was like, okay, now I need to show that we do have this field of energy that transmits and that we merge them together and that it all exists. So there it is, Energetics 11. Please watch it, because that's really the culmination of how we get into solutions, folks. And if you're interested in me giving this material to you in a seminar format in person, you can contact me. We can work out some things where I can potentially do that for you in a group of people if you'd like to learn more. That, I think, is the best way to learn about these things. And I can even measure your biofield, so we can do a group environment that way. We can see what we can work out, folks. But my contact details are in the description below. I could still use some financial support right now. Those who can, please do. If you support this work, I would appreciate it. Thank you for joining, everybody, and staying engaged. I really do appreciate it, and have a good night.